now have a new challenge, perhaps the most monumental in recorded history. The opportunity to investigate a phenomenon that could change our destiny. A look at ourselves 1,000 years in the future.
We're going to examine and perhaps question some widely held theories of what may have happened to this Earth of ours. We're going to investigate some strange and bizarre events in the present, unbelievable happenings, as fresh as today's headlines. And more important, perhaps, we're going to take a searching and scientific look into the future. We're reaching more and more out into space. Perhaps we may learn someone, something, somewhere in space is reaching out to us.
Who the visitors are, where they're from, and what they want is unknown.
Bigfoot was attracting national attention and was now rapidly becoming the most intriguing mystery on the North American continent. Scientists and photography experts have examined the individual frames of this film and have come to the conclusion that the film and the creature are authentic.
Telepathy, psychokinesis, Bigfoot and black masses, UFOs and Atlantis, Kirlian photography, cloning, and cryonics. These subjects all have one thing indisputably in common. People want to know more about them. For mankind's future, on Earth and beyond.
Welcome to After Dark Radio with your host, Bryan Alvarez.
How's it going, everybody? Bryan Alvarez here on After Dark Radio. It is February 11, 2017. After Dark Radio here on the Dark Matter Digital Network every Sunday night, 9 Pacific, midnight Eastern. And today we are looking at the monsters, mysteries, Bigfoot, ghosts, etc. of Oklahoma. Somehow, as we were moving down the map, instead of going south last week, we went east. We did Missouri. And we're back heading south again, and today it shall be Oklahoma. And from there we will continue our journey. Every week we've been doing this. We're about, I'd say, almost halfway through the nation, looking at all of the various states. Oklahoma today, got a lot of interesting stories here. You ever heard of the Chicken Man? Today's your lucky day. After Dark Radio airs every Sunday night here on the Dark Matter Digital Network. We do a double feature with Carl Stern's Dragon King Dark, which airs immediately following this show. And if you want to grab all of the shows you've missed, if you're a first-time listener, we do have a subscription area you can check out. It is located at, believe it or not, WrestlingObserver.com. That is my main gig. I cover pro wrestling and mixed martial arts. We do shows every single day. Got 8,000 shows in the archives covering pro wrestling and mixed martial arts. But right now, there are 200 episodes of After Dark Radio that are available for subscribers in our archives. You can grab most of the episodes of After Dark Radio dating back to 2011. There's probably about 9 months missing from a couple of years ago when we were experimenting with a different website. Someday, I'm sure those will be made available. But there's a lot of stuff going on. I haven't had time. But every show that we have done in the last 6 months or so, and every show that we will do going forward is in the archives, as well as all of the current Dragon King Dark shows that are going up every week on the Dark Matter Digital Network as well. So, as noted, 200 shows in the archives. All of the new shows are going in there. You'll never lose them. As a subscriber to WrestlingObserver.com, you can check that out. Also, our Facebook page, which is free, After Dark Radio Show on Facebook, Facebook.com/After Dark Radio Show. What could be easier? My Twitter is at Bryan Alvarez. Every now and then there's After Dark related material on Twitter. It's usually pro wrestling and photos of my daughter, that sort of thing. But if you want the daily scoops, 3 articles a day, the Facebook page is the place to go. Facebook.com/After Dark Radio Show. Andrew Ludsky does a great job keeping that thing going every single day. Your timeline will not be bombarded. You will not have 9,000 articles flooding your Facebook wall every day. 3 a day, that's it. And you can always go up and scroll down and see what you've missed over the last couple of days as well. So Facebook.com/After Dark Radio Show. At Bryan Alvarez on Twitter, etc., etc. And that is it for the plugs. Why waste time? Back in just a moment, talking the monsters and mysteries of the great state of Oklahoma here on After Dark Radio on the Dark Matter Digital Network. Exploring American Monsters, Oklahoma. This from MysteriousUniverse.org, which has a series very similar to what we're doing, looking at all of the various states of the Union in print form, or online print form. You can head up there and check it out, MysteriousUniverse.org. Couple of very creepy creatures to talk about, including the Oklahoma octopus. The octopus is not a freshwater creature, but since before the white man settled Oklahoma, there have been legends of deadly monsters the size of a horse living in Oklahoma waters. Although the native Indians thought this monster to be more akin to a giant leech, over the decades it's become associated with an octopus. The octopi are said to inhabit Lake Thunderbird, Lake Ulaga, and Lake Ten Killer. That's a lake I'm not swimming in. Lake Ten Killer. People who have claimed to see the octopus say it is as deep as a Jeep, or as big as a Jeep, with reddish-brown skin. Some witnesses say it looks like a shark with tentacles. The legend of the octopus has grown in Oklahoma due to an increased rate of unexplained drownings. Gee, I wonder, in Lake Ten Killer, according to Scientific American magazine, the octopus reportedly, quote, drags swimmers down with its many strong arms. Although intrigued with the idea, the magazine maintains that an octopus simply could not adapt to a freshwater environment. Scientists are no fun. Well, you know what? I'm not saying that there is an octopus in any of the lakes in Oklahoma. I think it's very, very unlikely. But there are a lot of things over the history of the Earth that scientists have said, you just can't do it, it's not possible, doesn't exist. Turns out it does. The lowland gorilla wasn't even discovered until the mid-1800s. Think about that, the mid-1800s. How about the El Reno Chicken Man? In December 1970, near the town of El Reno, just west of Oklahoma City, a farmer walked out to his chicken coop and found the door lying on the ground ripped off its hinges. The door and the interior of the chicken coop were covered in human-like handprints about 7 inches long and 5 inches wide. The farmer called the game warden, and the warden, not knowing what to make of the scene, called the zoo. Zoo director Lawrence Curtis said the prints, with an obviously deformed thumb, were definitely primate. It resembles a gorilla, Curtis told the Associated Press. It appears that whatever was making these prints was walking on all fours. There were some footprints outside in December. Various reports of similar prints were received throughout the state that year. The prints were shown to various wildlife experts who all agreed they were left by a primate, but what primate left them remains a mystery. However, reports of big, hairy primates, aka Bigfoot, abound in Oklahoma to this day. Interesting, by the way, this is not the only time that I've heard stories about people who have found prints, and the prints were obviously deformed, whether it be a club-footed Bigfoot, or here we've got a hand print with a deformed thumb. Very interesting, the idea that you would hoax a footprint or handprint with an obvious deformity. I mean, maybe that's the idea. Maybe that's the idea of a hoaxer. Well, we'll make people believe it's real by making it a little bit different. But I've heard stories like this before. What does it all mean? Dear man, Kyle Haying and a friend visited the 59,000-acre Wichita Mountains National Wildlife Refuge just west of Lawton, 2012, when they saw something that they wished they hadn't. Around 10 p.m., while taking photographs of stars, they noticed the wildlife began to move. Coyotes, American bison, and a herd of elk trotted past Haying and his friend. The beast walked past the men, some as close as 5 feet. Then came dangerous feral hogs, which ran by seemingly oblivious to the humans. It became deathly silent, Haying said. Air became ominous. We felt an odd pressure. We started packing everything into my trunk quickly. Men got into the car, started to pull out, and they saw what had caused the animals to spook. My headlights lighted up a human figure with a head I cannot easily describe. It didn't look human. It was as though it had the head of a buffalo or an elk, while standing upright with 2 legs and 2 arms that were human, he said. But the eyes terrified him. they were a dark red. Terror consumed Haying. He didn't know if he was looking at a beast or a man in a mask. As the car's headlights moved over the creature, it jerked as if hit. Haying punched the accelerator, tore away from the red-eyed monster. That's the whole story. There's no follow-up. I don't know if there are other sightings of this alleged deer man, but I can tell you one thing. It says here they saw something they wish they hadn't. I would say that if I saw a deer man, I would very much wish that I had not. There's something about these half-man, half-animal creatures that are particularly fearsome. The Lawton werewolf. Yes, a werewolf in Oklahoma. In the early 70s, Lawton residents witnessed a slew of werewolf sightings in the heart of winter. It started with one man who had a heart attack. He saw a bipedal wolf at his fish pond. Sightings escalated with reports of the creature stalking the town, leaping from bushes, and chasing cars. A police officer answered the call of a witness who claimed to get a close look at the creature. It sat on a railing outside his apartment, 17 feet off the ground. The beast's face looked as if it had been burned. The beast leapt from the railing and dashed away. This creature wore the torn remains of clothing. That is an interesting detail. Many times, we have heard stories of alleged werewolves or the dog man or whatever crazy creature somebody reports, even Bigfoot. These hairy, non-human beasts. But very, very rarely are they wearing human clothing. In fact, virtually never. There have been rare reports of individuals who claim that they have seen Bigfoot wearing some sort of clothing. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about reports of folks who had seen a Bigfoot-like creature that was wearing a stovepipe hat. Remember that one? But very rarely are they seen in clothing. Very rarely are the dog men seen in clothing. They're all half animal, half man, but they run around like animals with no clothes on. But every now and then, there's a very strange story like this, the Lawton werewolf, which was seen with the torn remains of clothing on. Obviously, the suggestion would be that, my God, this is a true werewolf. It was a man who turned into a wolf, and his clothes have been torn through the transformation, but they're still hanging from his body. Very creepy story. KTUL.com. Story from September of last year. Bigfoot experts say the creature highly likely present in Oklahoma. It is a legend older than all of us, it says, a creature, half man, half ape, walking the woods. To many, if not most, it seems like a tall tale, but for some, the answer is quite clear. Bigfoot is real. Lyle Blackburn says, I often in this research realize that we may not know everything that we think we know about the world around us. He has done a lot of work. I believe wrote a book about the folk monster. He is a cryptozoologist. He's been seen on Finding Bigfoot, etc. I'm a monster hunter, he says. He has been fascinated with Bigfoot since he was a kid. He said the famous 1967 video helped kickstart his fascination. That, of course, is the Beast of Boggy Creek. It is one of the biggest and ongoing mysteries of our world, he says. Are there huge man-like apes walking through our forests? If there are, how have they been able to manage being hidden and unproven thus far? He says he's been to the mountains, researched over the years. He thinks at any minute now, there's going to be some kind of proof, or at least a better photo. In January, the same KTUL did a story with the North American Wood Ape Conservancy. And if you go into our archives here at After Dark Radio, we have also interviewed folks from the North American Wood Ape Conservancy. You can Google it. They are looking for an ape. They believe there is an undiscovered ape in North America. They're not into the whole paranormal aspect of this. It's an ape out there in the woods that throws rocks. They're trying to find it. The North American Wood Ape Conservancy. The group had recently published scientific research on Bigfoot that was all based in Oklahoma. Blackburn says, I would put Oklahoma way at the top of the list of places that could truly be a habitat for an animal like this. He goes around speaking as well. He had some speaking engagements in Oklahoma. Now, there has been research, scientific research, not just people telling stories. But according to the North American Wood Ape Conservancy, this from doubtfulnews.com, the investigations conducted over the course of 4 years ranged from 60 to 120 days in duration and produced experiences, evidence, and information thought to be significant, though not definitive to the point of validating the existence of a North American anthropoid species. Some of the more notable thoughts and impressions recorded by scores of North American Wood Ape Conservancy team members are described and discussed in the Ouachita Project monograph. That you can find, by the way, on the website of the North American Wood Ape Conservancy. It's very, very interesting, I might add. And there's a link to it here at doubtfulnews.com. What was the Conservancy able to document? Not a specimen, although they were prepared to take one down and did shoot and apparently hit one. I got to get them back on the show for an interview about that. No photographs, had problems with trail cameras ruined by bears, and when secured, devices were noticeable on the trails and conspicuous around the cabins. However, you will find documented in the report accounts of the following. Over 1,000 rock-throwing incidents. This is over 4 years. And when they went out, they weren't out for a day. They were out for a considerable amount of time. Wood knocking, sometimes rhythmic, responsive, or mimicking. Metallic noise, use of rocks or hard objects on metallic objects. And by the way, someday, I've got to get somebody on the show that can talk about strange mechanical underground noises. This always creeps me out. There are stories about them all over this country, including in eastern Washington. I'm in western Washington, but if you go over the mountains, there are stories over there of weird metallic underground clanking noises, sometimes in relation to UFO sightings. It's intriguing to me. I must know more about it. Sounds of movement through vegetation, bipedal footfalls, banging on the structure walls during the night, footprints, strong smells, damaged trees, vocalizations, indeterminate hair and blood samples, signatures from thermal cameras and reports of eye shine, brief sightings of reddish brown to black various sized animals, and on occasion, one occasion, physical intrusion into a window. I believe that means a hand reached into a window. Can you imagine? Group suggests in their hypothesis that an undocumented anthropoid, an ape, is native to this remote area that they call Area X in order not to reveal its location. It is on private land. They surmise the creature primarily is bipedal, exists in social groups. They have adapted to be stealthy and avoid being in a direct line of sight. The interesting thing, I'd have to ask them about this, but if you talk about adaptation and evolution, I mean, that would indicate that there have been incidents or times where they were not stealthy or in a direct line of sight, and they were hurt, injured, or killed. We have no reports of that, however. So when they made this evolutionary leap or adaptation, I guess would have had to been some time ago, hundreds of years ago, maybe thousands of years ago. I strongly urge you to read the report and notice that there is no hoaxing evident. 12,000 hours of investigation by the dozens of participants. So you can check it out. There is an update. There's two updates, actually. One from March of 2015 by Brian Brown. He was asked about the main issues in the report. Many are reporting they're dismissing the report out of hand, assuming that the other people were doing the rock throwing. But Brian responds, the rocks were flying essentially all the time. We've been there for months on end, over 4 years. If it's people doing it, their commitment to hoaxing is remarkable and unrealistic. Regarding blood samples, and there were blood samples, they are certain it is blood, but unsure why the test results were not conclusive. Could be many reasons, including degradation from the environment. The lab didn't take it seriously enough. There is another update here. neutrality in the Wood Ape report. There's actually no information here. You have to click on this, but you could head up there to the North American Wood Ape Conservancy and read it yourself. There is some concern that maybe the conservancy is being hoaxed, but as noted, 12,000 hours and out there for months at a time. It is possible, it says here, but not probable. North American Wood Ape Conservancy. Google it, and you can also check out our website, WrestlingObserver.com. Go through the archives, and we have other interviews with folks from the North American Wood Ape Conservancy. Back in a moment with UFOs, After Dark Radio, Dark Matter, Digital Network. We don't have a lot of great UFO stories from the great state of Oklahoma, but I did see this headline, and when I saw it, I had to read it. From the Inquisitor.com. Stealth alien UFO dropped humanoid robotic explorer near Guthrie, Oklahoma, then launched back to space after retrieving it, according to ET hunters. That's quite the claim. According to UFO hunters and investigators, a stealth alien spacecraft may have dropped a humanoid robotic explorer in Guthrie, Oklahoma, retrieved it after several hours, and launched back to space on October 3rd, 2016. The sensational claim by members of the UFO community followed a bizarre report. What's the UFO community, by the way? Is that an actual designation, the UFO community? Followed a bizarre report submitted to the Mutual UFO Network on Wednesday, October 5, by an unnamed witness. The report was filed as case 79614 in the database of MUFON, describes itself as the largest UFO documenting and investigating organization in the world. According to the witness, a Moultrie trail camera set up outside his home in Guthrie photographed a metallic, humanoid, robot-like object and a bizarre UFO flying across the sky. The strange objects appeared in separate images taken on the same day, Monday, October 3rd, 2016, by the camera placed outside his home. The witness said the metallic object had a humanoid form and may have been a robot. The strange humanoid robot-like object appeared in only one of a series of photos taken seconds apart outside his home in Guthrie, Oklahoma. Not sure what that means when you take a series of photographs and the object is seen in only one of them, taken seconds apart. This suggested to alien hunters that the object was a mobile unit that had moved out of sight by the time the camera took the next image seconds later. An image taken of the same space near the witness's home about 7 hours later did not contain the mysterious robotic object, but visible in the distance was a rocket-shaped UFO in the sky. So it seems that they put two and two together to come up with this story. The witness sent the images to MUFON on Wednesday after he discovered them while reviewing the photos taken on Monday. He sent them to MUFON because he was puzzled by the objects that appeared in two separate images taken hours apart. However, he was certain that the metallic humanoid object did not remotely resemble anything that was normally seen near his house. He also could not guess what the rocket-shaped object that appeared in the photo taken several hours later might have been. He was deleting photos when the human form caught his eye. We have nothing that would look like this thing on the back. I am sending two pictures taken in the same minute. The first shows it is there. The second shows it is gone. The human form is on the right side of the picture by the wheelbarrow. Now, sadly, there is no photograph that is included with this report, so I can't tell you what it is. All I can tell you is that's the story. Let's talk about some ghosts here on the show. Everybody's favorite, the Shadowlands.net. You can head up to Shadowlands.net, and you can find a list of all of the strange ghost stories from your neck of the woods. No matter where you live in this country, there may be something weird there. I was going through the Shadowlands report for Washington, which of course is where I live, And the first time I went through it, I did a quick glance and saw nothing listed for Bothell. And so I moved on. And of course, there is paranormal activity in Bothell. I've witnessed it myself at an old lodge, by the way, that we used to train jiu-jitsu in, which I think is being torn down. There was a sign on the door. This building is over 100 years old. And it appears they may be fixing to tear it down, which is too bad, because a lot of weird things happen there that maybe I could tell my child about someday. But anyway, as I was going through the listing, just looking at what else happened in Washington, I noticed that there was a supposed haunted barn that was right across the street from the new Seattle Times building. That means nothing to 99.9% of you, but it means something to me because that Seattle Times building, number one, I lived like 2 blocks from there up until about 2010, maybe 2006. But the point of this is, guess who else lives right next to the Seattle Times building? My grandmother, Granny, who's on all of our shows, or the Bryan and Vinny Thursday show, every Thursday night at WrestlingObserver.com. She lives right by the Seattle Times building. And so I thought, my God, I remember that barn. Turns out the barn has since been torn down. So it is no longer something that can be investigated. But allegedly that old barn right there, for those of you that have ever been in Bothell, and you know where the Seattle Times building is, right across the street, there was an old barn that has since been torn down, I think in about 2005. But man, oh man, apparently there were scary things that happened in that barn. And there were also a lot of reports, obviously, about what's going on with the Maltby Cemetery, a very, very famous haunted cemetery, allegedly haunted cemetery here in Washington State, which is patrolled by the authorities because everybody goes to try and find out more about the Maltby Cemetery and the alleged 13 steps to hell. I also, in investigating the Maltby Cemetery, found a Facebook page about how they were, I guess, what would the word be? They were renovating the Maltby Cemetery. I thought, oh my God, they're renovating the Maltby Cemetery. After all these years, they're going to be doing something. Friends of the Maltby Cemetery was the name of the Facebook page. I'm looking at all these photos, and when I was young, I went to try to find the Maltby Cemetery, was unable to. There's a housing development there. It's apparently back in the woods. And anyway, I was looking at these photos and I thought, holy smokes, this Maltby Cemetery, it's much bigger than I imagined. And look at this place. It's crazy how it's been renovated. Turns out there's also a Maltby Cemetery in the UK, which is what this page is about, so it's not the same place. But for a while there, I thought, wow, I'm going to have to go check this out. But anyway, Shadowlands Haunted Places Index for Oklahoma. A lot of haunted stuff in Oklahoma. Of course, at the top here, it notes that any places listed here require permission to visit or investigate. Many of the places are patrolled by the authorities, and the trespassers will be prosecuted. Let's start with Alva. The Cherokee Strip Museum was once a hospital. All of the rooms on the second and third floors have been bricked up, save for the surgery on the second floor. Several people have seen something in that room from outside the museum at night. There have been several accounts of people breaking in at night and seeing something. Ada, at the Petrified Tree. It is said that many years ago, a group of members of an occult would meet there, sacrifice animals and humans. Late at night, it is still said that you can hear odd sounds and see abnormal lights and shadowy figures. Anadarko, Jeremiah's Bridge. Cars break down frequently on this bridge, even school buses, but only at night. People claim to have seen a Native American man jumping off the bridge, or have seen blood dripping on their windshield as they drive over the bridge, or dead animals hanging from trees overlooking the bridge that are not there when they stop to cut them down. A team of investigators began taking pictures over the bridge, when suddenly, while they were reloading the film, of course, a flash came out from under the bridge, as if something was mimicking their camera flash. It came under both sides. It was gone as soon as it happened. Then they drove forward about 15 feet and got out to see bright balls of white light floating towards them, almost like a flashlight going on and off and zigzagging through the trees. Kept coming closer to them. They took pictures of it. They claimed they came out quite nicely. We are waiting for the investigators to send the pictures. Alderson. We've got another crybaby bridge. The site of a single-lane ironwork bridge, now replaced by a new one, unfortunately. Many locals have told the story of hearing a baby's cry from beneath the bridge late at night, and even some sightings of what appeared to be a faintly glowing image of a woman hovering just above the rocky floor of the creek. March 2004 edition of this story. In the late 40s, a backwoods man allegedly raped his daughter several times, and instead of keeping the babies, she threw them over the bridge into the North Boggy Creek. Legend has it that if you go to this bridge and stand at the edge, you can hear the babies crying. Anadarko at the Riverside Indian School. There is a 121-year-old Native American school. There have been reports from students and staff about hearing and seeing strange things within the school and dorms. Reports of an apparition of an Indian boy with bruises on his face. Ardmore. These are my favorite types of stories. Mr. Apple's Cemetery. It is said that if you go to the cemetery and find the headstone marked Mr. Apple and walk around it 3 times saying Mr. Apple, and you're home at night, a bright light will start. Oh no, you got to say, Mr. Apple, are you home? As I've noted before, these are all sent in by readers of the Shadowlands, so sometimes trying to figure out what they're trying to say is a struggle. I'll try it again. It is said that if you go to the cemetery, find the headstone marked Mr. Apple, walk around it 3 times saying, Mr. Apple, are you home? A bright light will start chasing you, and your neck will start to hurt for some reason. As soon as you get to somewhere safe and you look at your neck, it looks like someone has scratched you so deep that it will leave scars. It actually says it will leave scares. I'm not sure which it is, actually. All of these stories about alleged terrible things that will happen if you say someone's name 3 times or this or that, you'd think in the days of cell phones, we'd have some sort of proof of this. Let's go to Binger High School. In the old part of the school, by the gym at night, you can hear kids talking and laughing. And in the basement, you can hear footsteps and talking. Blanchard Cemetery. You walk in, you come to the second section of the cemetery. There will be 3 trees in the middle of the second section. Go to the left side of the section. You are more than likely to see a tall figure of a man with black pants, and mostly what you can see is his hands and his pants. There is no logical explanation for this figure, no shadows, etc. Because we checked it out with our van lights, nothing there. The figure also waves. There was a light that got bright and then slowly dimmed. The Devil's House at Broken Arrow. About 3 miles down a gravel road, there once stood a concrete house supposedly once owned by KKK members, which has just recently been torn to the ground. Several reports have been made about bonfires seen 1 minute, and then they disappear the next. Freezing cold temperatures inside the house, even in the middle of summer. A sharp turn is located 15 feet from the rubble, and at night there is a car that drives insanely fast around this turn, and then it disappears into a nearby barbed wire fence out in a cornfield, and no tire marks have ever been found. Broken Arrow. Nazi POW camp. Just north of the Arkansas River and south of a neighborhood, there is an old military installation that has been shut off for years. Supposedly, it used to hold Nazi prisoners of war from World War II. If one goes there late at night, you get a bad feeling from the place, and sometimes you can hear things from behind the locked gate. Broken Arrow, the old high school. On numerous occasions while closing the library in the evening, several voices have been heard in the southeastern corner of the building. These sounds have been described as teenage or adult voices in heated arguments. Also heard were small children laughing and playing. During the time of hearing the voices, there has been a cold chill in the air in that particular area of the building. Buffalo, duck walls. The employees have fondly named a spirit Bob. Bob loves leaving all kinds of merchandise on the floor, has a fondness for making noises with a variety of things, must have liked the other kind of spirits, as a few of us have gotten whiffs of him when there has been no one around. He keeps things interesting. Bing High School Auditorium. There were actually 2 ghosts that have made their way into the Bing Auditorium. One is of the little girl that fell off the back of one of the modules. The little girl is said to sing, "I dropped my dolly in the dirt," near the back of the auditorium. The other is of Sally Engels, who was a senior at Bing. She was a drama queen, and when she graduated, went on to become an actress. She committed suicide because she was a perfectionist, could never get her body to look like she wanted it to. Lights have been known to flash, things have been known to drop out of the ceiling, and a certain doll has been known to move throughout the auditorium. Module doors that are locked have been opened, and Sally has made several appearances. We got more stories about Sally. It's actually a second report from the same Bing Auditorium. A little girl who fell off the back of the first module at stage left. The ghost has been encountered by many late-night drama students during long hours of rehearsal. She has been said to sing, "I dropped my dolly in the dirt," but is never actually seen. An older drama graduate who went off to become a model in 1973, Sally, as they call her, was a perfectionist and didn't think she would make it and committed suicide. There have been 2 witnesses of Sally. She is always seen backstage, only her profile is seen. Doors have locked, and on one account, a student was actually trapped within the room by this unknown force. Things have been known to move, scratches and whispers have been heard. Many of the drama students believe it's Sally trying to make herself known once and for all. Comanche, Black Panther Bridge. Every night, if you drive across Black Panther Bridge and look up in the trees along the creek, you will see the yellow eyes of a black panther. Cherokee Elementary. When you go to the Cherokee Elementary old gym by the cafeteria, there's a huge bathroom. It is said to be haunted because some girl attempted suicide at a school dance. She hung herself. Now when you're in there alone, you can hear lockers slam, toilets flush, and the showers always turn on all the time. Red Bud Valley, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Site seems to have a number of hauntings, including a bridge called Carla's Bridge, where a schoolgirl's body was found in 1976. Sound of a young girl laughing has been reported here. Another odd happening is a visible fire on the crest of a large hill in the center of the valley, only to vanish a moment later. Claremore, Rogers State University. An old Indian man is said to walk the campus at night. A cadet from when it was a military academy who died in a hazing prank supposedly haunts the now TV station. A janitor that worked in the Baird Hall at one time heard footsteps coming up the stairwell at night several times when they were alone in the building, and in the radio station, another janitor heard a toilet flush in an empty bathroom. There are so many hauntings in Oklahoma. Let's talk about more at the old high school. The old high school is fixed up and serves a different purpose now, but when it was old and unuseful, if you went inside, there was an underground pool, and there were lockers down there. If you go down and open up all the lockers and then leave the room, you can hear all the lockers slamming closed. There was a belief that a little girl was burned and killed when the building caught on fire. She always carried a little doll with her, and if you went up the stairs, you will always see the doll in the same spot. And if you move the doll and come back, it will be in the same place as before. There's also a flight of stairs in the building, and if you stand there and watch them, you will see a young girl with a white dress floating and long black hair. She's holding her doll. Last, there are strange smells in the boys' bathroom. In the building, there are blood spots on the wall, and also blood looks like it was dripping from the ceiling. It looks like a mold spot on the ceiling, but it is red. Oklahoma City. Lots of stuff. Young American Corporation. 2 employees committed suicide after being terminated. It is said that you can feel cold spells of air pass by while walking through the lunch area, and also hearing loud noises such as gunfire late in the evening. Oklahoma City at the zoo. In the behind-the-scenes area of the aquatics building, a ghost of a woman with long hair has been seen at various times, usually at night, by several different people. No one has any idea of who she is or where she came from, much less why she's there. And finally, at the Pawhuska Pizza Hut. The Pizza Hut ghost has haunted the Pizza Hut here for many years. The rumor is that before it was a restaurant, it was a house back in the 40s, and a couple in their mid-20s lived there, and then the man got drafted to World War II, and he never returned. The house was torn down in the mid-70s after it had been vacant for years. After the woman died, it was made into a place of business. At times, you can see the lady looking out the window, waiting for her husband to return from war. There have been times that 40s-style swing music has been heard over the jukebox and no disc is playing. And she has been seen moving around the building in a nightgown, and sometimes she will move dishes. Now, there is a correction from 2007. The facts about the Pizza Hut, it says here, are not accurate. It was a home of a visitor's mother-in-law. She states the woman and her husband divorced and he moved to California. It is as if her ghost would be waiting for her sons to come home, not her husband. So we got to get the facts straight about why this ghost is waiting around here. House was not vacant for any great length of time, at the most about a year. The visitor states she spent quite a few weekends in the house. She was never afraid. But one night something patted her. She thought it was her husband. However, it was not. She and her husband figured it could have been the ghost of the younger brother who had died in the house. From what she'd been told, he was a great kid, worried about the wildness of his older brother. He was only 15 when cancer ended his life. Her husband's grandmother lived in the house prior to her death, and she did like to rearrange things. However, since this family loved the Lord, our visitor thinks no one at the Pizza Hut has anything to fear. Back in a moment with a look at where you can go in Oklahoma to check out some terrifying, spooky places and not be arrested. After Dark Radio, Dark Matter, Digital Network. Ashley here, who apparently does not have a last name, has an article at onlyinyourstate.com about some of the spookiest places you can visit in Oklahoma this Halloween or at any time. Many of these places have been deemed haunted by paranormal experts, Ashley writes. These are not seasonal haunted attractions, but real-life haunted places. We got Veterans Lake. Veterans Lake has been reported as one of the creepiest haunted places in all of Oklahoma. The lake is possessed by the spirit of a lady who died by drowning. She tried saving her child, but instead both died. Many years later, a girl also died by drowning from a boating accident. As night approaches, apparitions of the lady and girl can be seen in the lake. It is believed if you enter the lake after dark, you will be pulled in and drowned. The Bird Creek School, which is just about the creepiest looking building I ever saw in my whole life. You can check it out, onlyinyourstate.com. This one-room schoolhouse was built in the early 1900s for Native American children. The story goes, if you enter the school and write your name on the blackboard and leave for a few minutes, when you come back, your name will be erased. The mysterious activity keeps it on the list for haunted places. We talked about the Cherokee Strip Museum. We have got Cain's Ballroom in Tulsa. Cain's has been a long-standing concert venue in Tulsa, has hosted hundreds of performers over the years. It is said that it is haunted from one of these performers, Bob Wills, a country western performer. A lady's presence has also been seen and felt over the years. Visitors and paranormal teams explain an eerie feeling of being watched. Cold spots felt in the bathroom, the ballroom, orbs seen in photos, lights going on and off on their own, and silly voices are heard. Silly voices. Blanchard Cemetery. Cemetery is said to be haunted by a tall man wearing a black or dark suit. He is thought to be buried in the cemetery and is said to be seen waving at people to come close to him. Many unexplained sounds have been reported at night. The Belvedere Mansion. Built in 1902, this mansion was made for the Bayless family, party of 8. 6 months before its completion, Mr. Bayless died from an appendicitis attack. His wife and children moved into the home and occupied it until 1919. It is believed the spirits of the Bayless family haunt this mansion. Hot and cold spots are felt throughout. Hazy figures in dim lights will be seen, and unexplained noises have been heard on several occasions. The Blue Bell Saloon. The saloon in Guthrie was a former bordello run by Miss Lizzie and her girls named Claudia and Estelle. It was a bustling saloon, but Claudia was beaten to death and buried inside. Later on, Miss Lizzie and Estelle were found dead for unknown reasons. Since those deaths, the saloon has been haunted by Miss Lizzie and her family. Mohawk Park and Golf Course in Tulsa. We talked about this earlier, but this park is rumored to be haunted by a half-woman, half-deer. Many little people also roam the property and can be heard making noises. The golf facility is a bathroom that has been reported haunted as well. Lights have been seen coming from it, even though there is no electricity running into it. Now that's a place. I need people to investigate Mohawk Park and Golf Course. A deer woman and little people? I need to know more about this. Langston's Western Wear in Oklahoma City, built in 1919, this former dance hall and bar is now haunted by two sisters, Rose and Patty, who were taxi dancers at the dance hall. One day, Patty was shot by her boyfriend, and Rose, in such despair over it, hung herself in the room upstairs. Since then, this place has started having weird incidences, which are believed to be from the spirits of Rose and Patty. And that's it, everybody. I am off to research the Mohawk Park and Golf Course with the Deer Lady and the Little People. Maybe we'll talk about it next week, but in the meantime, I want to thank everybody for listening. We are here every week, 9 Pacific, midnight Eastern, here on the Dark Matter Digital Network. Be followed immediately afterwards by Carl Stern's Dragon King Dark, a brand new show. Make sure you check that out, as well as all of the other great programming on the Dark Matter Digital Network. I want to thank Keith Rowland for all of his hard work on the network. Tell your friends, spread the word, it's free on TuneIn Radio. Follow me on Twitter at Bryan Alvarez, Facebook, facebook.com/After Dark Radio Show. And we're out of here. Talk to you again next time. After Dark Radio here on the Dark Matter Digital Network.